Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's doing fantastically well. Darren Saul here, your host of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast, episode 25. Only 1 week to go before Christmas, and I hope everybody's looking forward to a break like I am. Today, we've got a fantastic show. We're going to save you some money. So, Mark Grant is here. How are you, Mark?
Excellent. Thank you, Darren. How are you this afternoon?
Very, very well. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure talking to quality people like yourself.
Thank you again. I really appreciate it. Now, payment solutions for your business, club, or association with no bank fees. No, you are not dreaming. This is a reality. So for everybody out there who doesn't know who Mark is and what Mark does, Mark was working for a Big Four bank 20 years in business banking when suddenly he could not continue doing what was expected, pillaging of businesses, clubs, and associations for fees and charges. With the introduction of the surcharge laws into Australia in September 2017, Mark developed a suite of payment solutions such as EFTPOS terminals, direct debiting, online payment gateways, and zero payment integration, which can be provided to businesses, clubs, and associations with no fees for the entity. There is no time like the present to address the issue of reducing profits and rising business costs. So welcome again, Mark Grant.
Thank you very much, Darren. Pleasure to be with you.
Thanks again. So Mark, I mean, what a great subject to chat about. You know, it's the end of the year. Everybody's going to be thinking about what they can do next year, how they can do even better. So maybe looking at their payment systems and saving some money is a great way to start.
Yeah, absolutely, Darren. Thanks for giving me the opportunity this afternoon to talk to you about this issue. And look, there's no time like the present. And I suppose with the year that we've come through, this year of COVID and this year of uncertainty, has given some people in business specifically a little bit more time to think about what they're doing and the interior of their business. So that's sort of led me to be probably the busiest year I've ever had in 4 years.
Incredible. So, I mean, I'd love to hear your journey. Tell us a bit more about how you went from working, with a big bank to doing what you do now.
Yeah, thanks. Well, look, it was sort of a case where, I was sort of a round person in a square hole.
Yep.
Now, that wasn't always the case, for 20 odd years, I was a perfect fit for what I was doing. But I saw the impact of what I was doing in a sort of a macro view, and I just couldn't do what I was doing anymore. So I finished up leaving. And look, it was something that took a lot of thought. Because obviously, you've been with an employer for 20 odd years, you're getting a paycheck every fortnight.
Yep.
You're walking away from that. You're walking into an uncertainty of, what you're going to do, income-wise and so forth. But in saying that, the certainty about what I was doing was that I was walking away with my head held high, knowing that I was no longer going to be impacting people's lives in a detrimental way that I thought I was doing.
Yep. And something that you could do to really make a difference to people's lives and their businesses and be proud of.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so very true, Darren. Yeah, it was a case of, sure, I had some tough times. By the way, I'm up here on the Gold Coast, but dealing with businesses right around Australia. And, I suffered, I was going to have 6 months off, the Westpac fires, as I called it. But 6 months turned into just shy of 2 years.
Wow.
Couldn't get work here on the coast. So as they say, if you can't get work, you've got to find work. So that's sort of what has led me to where I am now and what I'm doing now.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, it's always an interesting topic because, I mean, I'm the type of person that, I hate admin and I hate, I'm a bit OCD, so I don't want to dive into, documents and pages of things that I can't try and understand, and then it just creates more, creates a can of worms. It's a never-ending story. But a lot of people would probably just, like me, just put up with their bills and say, fine, it's pretty much what it was last month or last year. We'll just pay it and let's move on. But who knows what I'm being charged for that I don't even know if I even use it anymore. So I mean, you must see this all the time.
Yeah, I do, Darren. It's sort of it's a very good question because I get people asking me that same question day in, day out. Primarily around the fact of what people say to me probably more times than I can remember is, Mark, where have you been hiding with this, with what you do?
Yeah.
You know, it's like that. But I liken myself to David competing against Goliath, the banks. So we all know how that story ends, but that story won't end in that way if I have anything to do with it.
Yep.
So I'll always be providing a level of service, you know, to anyone that comes to me, you know, giving them that sort of expertise I've gained over 20 odd years in the financial services industry here in Australia.
And obviously, what you do can be tailored to small business and large business as well. Anybody.
Yeah, absolutely, Darren. Actually, yeah, absolutely. Because what was important to me is that when I went into this business, you know, people could be thinking, oh, well, he'll only want to deal with a business that's got, you know, $10 million turnover.
Yeah.
Maybe that was in my previous banking life, but now I've set this business up wholly and solely to reflect my personality. And my personality, I'm very much a people person. So in saying that, I came into this business on the pretext that I would help, whether it's a husband and wife running a news agency in Wagga Wagga,
Yep.
to a husband and wife running a cafe and lawn system. I will help anyone in that broad spectrum, because in life these days, if we've got an issue with our health, we go to a doctor. I know for a fact from my banking life that people in business do not have the time to either A, sit on a call, dial 1 to get your local branch, dial 2 to get your personal banker, dial 3 to talk to you know who.
Yep.
So really with me, what they're getting is a one-stop shop where I am it. It's me. That's all you deal with. And I take care of the inquiry from go to woe, and I also look after the end product, which, you know, the training and follow-up of that to make sure everything's working well.
Fantastic. And so tell me more about the surcharge laws in 2017. What's that all about?
Yeah, sure, Darren. So federal government brought into place, and look, for the benefit of yourself and your listeners, I'm going to sort of streamline the law a little bit because I could talk about it for probably 2 hours and we don't have that time this afternoon. So effectively, in September 2017, federal government introduced the laws, and the laws state that if a business club or association is accepting a payment for a good or service, that business club or association can pass back to the cardholder the cost of accepting their card, whether in person or online, the cost of doing business for that transaction.
Right.
So in short, that's a pretty quick summary of what it does. Where it gets a little grey, a little bit hard to understand is I've even had businesses this week where I've come across this situation where, and this is no reflection on any business owner in Australia at all, but we've got businesses now that have facilities with one of the major 4 banks, and the business is passing on its own private surcharge to its to the clients of the business, which they can do, no problem at all. But where they have to be very, very careful is they have to be seen to be operating within the confines of the law. And that's where a lot of people in business, I'm not saying that they don't understand the law, there's a lot of lawyers, but the surcharge law is very, very particular on what you can pass on the rates you can pass on.
Right.
So a very quick synopsis would be I won't use the name of the business, but there was a hardware store in the southern suburbs of Brisbane that was passing on to every consumer a 4% surcharge for every card transaction being processed in that hardware store.
Right.
I was lucky enough to have an interview with this, a meeting with this business owner, and it was no reflection on him at all. He understood that he could pass on the highest cost denominator to him to everyone paying by card. No, that's not what the law states. The law states you can pass on your lowest cost denominator to every person. So without trying to get into the nitty-bitty of it all, he suddenly saw that, okay, if I was passing on 30 cents a transaction to every cardholder, he'd be going out the back door very quickly. So at the end of that particular situation, he is now using one of my FPOS machines, which passes on automatically the surcharge relating to the card type being used for payment.
Gotcha. Love it. Fantastic. I can just imagine the look on people's faces when you go through some of their, their bills, and you say, "Wow, where's this? You're paying all this. Where's this coming from? Why are you paying this, etc., etc." I think, "Oh my God."
Yeah, we're not, us humans, as you would know, Darren, we're not creatures of change.
No, definitely not.
Unfortunately, this year we've had to pivot in a year of change.
Mm-hmm.
So in saying that, there's probably a lot of people maybe listening now that, have had facilities with their banks ever since the dawn of time. And I can understand that, because they probably think it's a lot of cost and time to change facilities over.
Yep.
There is. However, that's where I step in. That's what I take on board. Someone prefers to deal with me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So tell us a bit more about exactly what type of solutions you can offer and how people can work with you.
Yeah, sure, Darren. Okay, so first foray into the marketplace was what you mentioned earlier, was an FPOS terminal. So just for your own knowledge, and for that of some of the listeners who may not have FPOS terminals, and this is I'm mentioning this in no disrespect to any of the banks, but if you were to walk into a bank, I won't mention which one today, and asked to apply for an FPOS terminal with them, and let's go forward 12 months in time, you may have paid to that bank on average $15,000 to $20,000 in 1 year.
Right.
So I'm not picking on any specific industry here, but if you're in a cafe or if you're in a restaurant, $15,000 or $20,000, fair few meals, fair few drinks that you have to sell to recoup $20,000 before you can even break even. So what I'm governed by the surcharge laws. I also had to obtain an Australian Financial Services licence, enabling me to provide the services I do. Right. So what my terminal does, it passes on with surcharge. A business owner has got two choices. Either one, they can pass on a surcharge to the consumer. So while I'm talking about surcharge, let's get down to some nitty gritty here. When I'm talking about surcharge, if someone is spending $100 with your business and they're paying with a MasterCard, on average, you're looking at a surcharge of $2.
Right.
So if we just bring that back in a little bit of context, there may be some people listening right now who are going to be going into their favourite club or tavern or hotel later tonight for a drink or for dinner. They go to an ATM machine in that location and they may pay $4 to get $20 out. Wow. So I won't compare apples with apples, but as you can see in that example, let's call it a surcharge you're paying for getting cash out far outweighs what my machine would do.
Absolutely. It all adds up.
Yeah, it certainly does. So probably the other thing too, where my machine has a point of difference out there in the marketplace is reliability. So when I left my corporate banking job and just sort of decided to go into this line of business, it was imperative to me to ensure that I had an FPOS terminal that would have 100% reliability. So just to give some context around that, I have a business at the moment in Kalgoorlie in WA. Who has had my FPOS terminal for coming up 4 months now. I make a point of phoning them every 2 weeks just to check to make sure they got that reliability that I stand by, and they have not yet had outage on their terminal.
Wow.
So that was very important to me. So that's just a little bit of context. I probably don't want to get too much into the nitty gritty on, sorry, there's that word again, into the, you know, how the terminal works and that, but you know, that's probably for the listeners to come back to me, and yeah, I'm more than happy to spend time with them and uncover.
So any type of payment solution you can handle. And for example, I mean, a lot of people nowadays doing a lot of online commerce and a lot of online retail. So they have to have something that will integrate with their payment accounting system. And a lot of the time that can be quite pricey. I mean, they take a hefty cut.
Yeah, absolutely, Darren. You know, once again, I'm not going to attack the PayPals and Stripes of the world. You know, I have been fielding a lot of inquiries, as I say, during this COVID time that we've had, and primarily a lot of people have probably heard of the terminology online payment gateways.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, that's what people come to me looking for when they've got a website and want to accepting online payments. The only problem in some cases with online payment gateways, and it is with mine, is that it doesn't have the terminology built into it of an API, approved payment interface.
Right.
So what I've done during COVID is I've designed a hosted payment page. So it's an online payment gateway with the API built into it.
Gotcha.
So that now is where I'm sort of leading people down that path. So it still facilitates all the functionality. However, it gives you the ability to pass on to the cardholder, if you so wish, the transaction costs incurred.
Brilliant. So the API is there and you can integrate it because you've built it into this hosted.
Yeah, build it into, yeah. So I now call it a hosted payment page. So it's got the API functionality built into it.
Oh, fantastic. Well done. So, I mean,
Thank
I'd
you.
love to hear a little story or a case study of how you might have helped somebody recently that and the results were just phenomenal. So maybe walk us through a little story if you have one.
Yeah, okay. A little story goes. As I said, I'm up here on the Gold Coast, and there is a very well-known medical centre in Mermaid Beach, not far from where I live.
Yep.
And I had the opportunity of meeting with the doctors there. It was late last year now, and they were dyed-in-the-wool NAB bank clients.
Right.
They had 2 FPOS terminals with the NAB, and as I always do, just trying to understand a business's dreams and goals and aspirations, I said to the 3 doctors who are the owners of the business medical clinic, tell me a little bit about your goal. And they said, Mark, as you know, we run a very, very busy medical practice, and they do, without doubt. And what we're wanting to do is we'd really love to put another receptionist out the front. I said, okay. So by this time, I'd had the privilege of studying their NAB merchant statements. And I'd quickly calculated in my head that they were paying to the NAB on average $125,000 a year in fees and charges for 2 FPOS. Yep. So you can imagine how many transactions they're doing. So anyway, I asked them, okay, I said, well, doctors, how much would it cost to put a receptionist out the front? They said, Mark, let's use 50K. I said, right, okay. So how about this? How would you feel if I could show you a way that you could put the receptionist out the front and I could place an additional $75,000 into your cash flow each year?
I can only just imagine the response.
The response was I had to just about dial AAA very quickly because the 3 doctors just about had a heart attack. So cut a long story short, they're really raving fans of me now and giving me other connections in the medical clinic, you know, businesses around Australia. So yeah, but I know I'm talking there about, you know, $125,000 a year. But what's important to me, as I mentioned earlier on, what's really driving me is I have a real fascination, a real inclination to help people in business.
Yep.
And why? It's because I know that if I can help people in business, it's going to alleviate some of that pain and strain and suffering of cost of living pressures that we all suffer in our beautiful country.
Definitely.
So, if I can relieve that, it's going to help with the cost of living pressures,
Definitely. I
which
mean,
makes me very happy.
that's fantastic. The business world is getting more and more competitive. We're all working harder and harder, longer hours. If we can
Absolutely.
really find ways to reduce our costs, that's an absolute godsend, and this
Yeah,
could be one perfect way to do that.
yeah. It is. Probably saying that too. I have a lot of people say to me, "Hey, Mark, love what you do, hate surcharge, but Mark."
Yeah.
So what I normally say to those people up here in Queensland, Darren, I say, "Hey, Darren, I love your brand new BMW you got parked out the front there. When did you last fill up with petrol?" And you'd normally say, "This morning." "Well, Darren, if you hate surcharge, I suggest you go and sell your BMW, because here in Queensland we've got surcharge built into your fuel price."
Love it. But I mean, what's fascinating to me, and you touched on this a bit earlier, is obviously, we are creatures of habit. We don't like change. Certainly I'm like that. But is that one of the only reasons that we tend not to know about this? Or is it just we're ignorant when it comes to these kind of things? Why is it that there's so much of this going on and we have no idea?
To be honest, I think it's a case where, probably a number of different answers to that question, Darren. I think some people know about it and just think, "Oh, it's too hard. I'll put it in the bottom of the drawer
Yeah.
and leave it there and just hope it goes away." But you'll see that people, you're given discounts on your rates bills, your electricity bills, and things like that. So indirectly, that is, some people will call that a negative surcharge. But
Yeah.
I think why is surcharge not well known? It's because it's something new. It's something that I think a lot of people really probably haven't adapted to it yet, because they don't perhaps understand it.
Yep.
They don't understand the impact it will have. Primarily, people will say, "Mark, if I pass on a surcharge to my clients, I'll lose clients."
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Perhaps you will, but as I've seen, in probably close to 400 different industries I'm dealing with across Australia at the moment, I'm getting the same sort of issues presenting themselves, and that's, like I said earlier, reducing profits, increasing business costs. So, are you someone who's in business now in that position, and are you going to be continually going home happy next year with reducing profits each and every month?
Very true. Very
At
true.
the end of the day, if you are, and please, I don't mean to be derogatory in any, if you continue to do that, you're getting closer to putting that close sign on your business forever.
Yep. So true. And I think also, as you mentioned, I think it's also the point that a lot of people tend to look at the surcharge percentage or the surcharge rate, but they don't actually go and add it all up and work out exactly what they're paying every year.
Yeah.
Certainly I would be that type of person.
Yeah.
And then when you actually do that, you say, wow, is that really what I'm paying?
Yeah. So let's go back to the example I used earlier with an FPOS machine, and let's talk about a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
On average, most coffee shops, will charge you $5 for a latte or a cappuccino, whatever your poison is. When you're talking about surcharge, you're talking about 10 cents additional to $5.
Yep.
So it's probably cost you more than 10 cents to perhaps drive your car to the coffee shop. Probably cost you more than 10 cents in your time to walk to the coffee shop. So in all point, I sometimes see it immaterial.
Yep.
When you talk about that, but I'm never going to tell people how to run their business. That's not where I come from. My whole prophecy is around giving people an option that is law to help them increase their profitability and recoup some of their ever-increasing costs.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Well, Mark, that's sensational. Maybe let the audience know how they can find you and work with you if they want to get more details.
Yeah, sure, Darren. Look, in saying that, I hope that I've conveyed that I'm fairly easy to get along with, and that's my demeanour, and that's how I like to do business. So, in saying that, whichever way your listeners would like find it easier to make contact with me. So you have a mobile number for me being 0419 762 478. You can email me at mark.grant@costlesspaymentsolutions.com. You can find me on Facebook under Mark Grant and also on LinkedIn under Mark Grant.
Fantastic.
I think that's about all my different handles I've got, I think.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure I'll put all those details in the show notes for everybody so they can access you via whichever avenue they would like to.
Thank you, Darren.
Find out more about how you can save them some money in 2021.
Absolutely, yeah. And I look forward to doing that because, in projections I've had, and there's some uncertainty still lying ahead of us in the approaching new year.
Yep.
So, let me give some people some cash injection to deal with that uncertainty, whichever way they need to.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you once again for coming on the show, and giving such value to our listeners,
Darren.
and really, giving us
Anytime.
information. Thank you so much. Anything that you'd like to leave us with before we finish up for 2020?
Yeah, look, I just probably want to digress a little bit, still in the financial sector world. And it happens to be around mortgages.
Sure.
So in other words, if anyone in your listening world has got a mortgage here in Australia and their mortgage rate starts with a 4, I would strongly recommend either A, if your mortgage was arranged by a broker and you can make contact with your broker, please do, because as I mentioned to you earlier, I'm focused on helping you alleviate the pressures, living pressures here in Australia. I've had a person last week have a 4% interest rate on their home loan that suddenly was reduced down to, I think it was just under 1.8%.
Wow.
So when you think about 2.2% on, I think it was $600,000, you can just see suddenly the amount of money going into their pocket each year. Then.
Well done. Absolutely. So true. Just goes to show you it's not always about making money or finding ways to make money, but it's also about working out how to reduce your costs. And a lot of the time we forget that.
Absolutely,
business, because we're chasing clients and chasing new business, but we're not taking a good job of our housekeeping.
That's it. Absolutely. Always good to take care of that housekeeping.
Absolutely. Well, once again, Mark Grant, thank you so much. Real pleasure having you on the show.
Pleasure, Darren. Thank you very much for having me.
Awesome. And for everybody out there, have a fantastic day, fantastic weekend, and we'll see you very, very soon for another episode of Soul Searching, the Soul Recruitment Podcast. Bye for now.